So for this video, we're going to download data in CSV format and convert it into Swift objects. So a little bit of background to CSV. CSV is a file format which stands for comma separated values. The data is tabular with each column separated by a comma. So you can see here I have got Monday B on the 2022-10-10. That comes into two columns in a traditional table due to the comma that separates the two elements of data for our table, so two columns. Each row in the table is indicated by a /n, which is the code for new line. So you can see here there's one row for a new line, another for a new line, matching with our traditional table data. So what we're going to do is start up a Xcode project, which I've already got going over here. In our Xcode project, I've got an object for day, and day is an object that has a string for day and a string for date, with my initializer setting that up as required. I have my data manager, which will download my days and it will store them in the array of day. I also have a display variable sitting here because as we walk through this project, we want to see what we're downloading and what progress we're making, and I'm going to place that over here. In our content view, quite simply, calling our data manager and displaying the data, or the display variable from the data manager. So, on to our download days function. First thing I need to set up is the URL. Guard, can I let my URL equal a URL from the string? And you can place any string you like into here, any website address. However, I've already got one set up prior, and I've just called it API. Else, print invalid API, or URL would be better, invalid URL, and I print my API, and then return, which will stop the function from running any further from here. Next, I want to take this data and store it inside the app as display. So I'm going to create a constant called website content, and it's going to equal a string based on the contents of my URL. Now I need to do a do, as this will throw an error if it cannot do it. Cannot get data as a string from the URL. I like putting the URL each time. So I cannot get the data as a string from the URL, and I'm going to try and do that. So I'm going to try and go and get the contents of the URL. I'm going to do that, and if I can't do that, I'm going to catch the error. I'm going to do my main actor, so that will place it onto the main thread, which is my screen that is running. This is currently a background task, and I'm going to put it onto the foreground by running the main actor. Display equals my website content. I need to wait until that's done. So running this, there are all my days for this school year. So as you can see, the data has got that comma separating it, but you also note the speech marks on either side. So as we start converting this data, we need to start looking at how to strip away all these elements that we don't want. To keep our code clean, I'm going to create a series of extensions to string in order to strip away all those elements and get just the data itself. So I've already created an extensions file here, a blank file, and I'm going to do an extension to string because our data at the moment is in string format, and I'm trying to convert that into an array of strings. So we're going to do an extension to string. And the first thing I want to get is each individual row. So var rows is going to be a string. And I'm going to return self, meaning whatever string I'm applying the extension to. And I'm going to get the components of that string separated by \n. So over back to my data manager, I'm going to print the website content dot rows, and I'll print it down here in the console. Running that again. And there is all of my data exactly as it was over here, but in an array. And each element of the array is a singular row. And you can see the speech marks start there and end there. So that's a string. And inside that is the escaped string, meaning that it was just a way of showing it on the screen so it doesn't have two double speech marks next to each other. So I now have my data in rows. Probably a little bit easier to see that by creating an array of string. Like so. And my website content, convert that to rows. So we'll go to our content view and we'll change this to a list. Row in, text row. So I'll get each element out of my array, so that one there, and place it in a list now. Identified by self. So running that, no longer appear in the console, and we've got a list of data now. And you can see there's my first row, second row, third row, and the speech marks are still around. So that'll be my next job, is to get each element in my array and get them individually without the speech marks. So over to my extensions. I'm going to start getting the columns, and that's going to also return an array of string. First thing I need to do is remove the first speech mark and the last speech mark, because these aren't needed at all, and then I can separate by the middle section. So the first thing I do is return myself, and I'm going to drop the first, then I'm going to drop the last character, and then I'm going to get the components separated by speech marks with a comma in between. Over to my data manager, rows of data from our table. You can see there's my first one there. I can take those and make columns and put them as days. So for my row in my display, so I'll loop through each row in my display. I'll loop through each one. So I have my row there. Then I'm going to loop through each. Then I'm going to make my row into a column. So let column equal row.column. So I've now made columns from my row. And I can let my date equal, go to the columns and get element 0, which is actually that one there. The first one is 0. Then let day equal columns 1. And we're done. With this, I can make a day. Days dot append. Now I'll need to do my main actor for this one. Await main actor dot run. Days dot append a new day where the day is the day I just converted and the date is the date I just converted. Done. So now I've taken my website content from the URL as one big string, taken that and made it into rows. Then I've gone into each row and made them into columns and grabbed the first element and the second element as date and day. If I go to my content view, let's just display those days, day in, day.day, plus the space, plus day.date. And date, the ID. And there we go. Tuesday A, 2022-01-15, and I have no data at the end there. So I should probably do a little bit of a check here to make sure that I can get enough data. So we'll do a if columns.count equals 2. So there are 2 columns. Let's do that. We'll check. And now we don't have a crash. So have a go at this on your own. You've got the link sent to you. So you've got this days link and you'll be able to download the days and put them in columns. We'll look at making this a little bit cleaner over time where we can put this into our initializer for days and just send the columns across.